Oh. Hello everybody, I'm Helen Singer. I'm the Information Manager working with Computer Science, and it's really nice to meet you virtually. Some of you are typing in where you're from, which is just fantastic. So we've got Finita from Germany and Reza, who's from Iran originally, Jane in Devon, somebody from London, Hertfordshire, yes. So what I'm going to do is, I've got some slides about research practices. So really it's how to get the best out of the online library as you're studying for your computer science online program. So I'm going to talk through the slides and then I'll wait, if you don't mind waiting, if you've got any questions, I'll take them at the end. I hope you can hear me clearly and I'll leave the camera on for now if that's okay. Okay. Oh no. I think I need Jonathan to help because I've already lost my slides. Sorry. I don't know what I did there. Sorry, I'm having to be rescued already. I'll share document. It's research practices at the top. So I just press to get to the next slide. Oh, it's there, yeah. Lovely. Sorry about that little detour. Okay, so I just wanted to mention a few things to get you started. Definitely, if you can, get the apps for Hearts Mobile and Office 365. Hearts Mobile has got some features which are for people on campus, but it has got it's got Ask Hearts, it's got frequently asked questions, it's got sort of service status, it's got links to other apps. So you might want to download that. And the other app you might like to download is Office 365. So you all have access to all the Office applications as students here. And that is Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You can use them remotely in the cloud from office.hearts.ac.uk. You can synchronize them to your own computers and you get a terabyte of storage. So it's definitely worth, as you know, it's all free. So I would recommend Office 365 as well. And then StudyNet, hopefully you've had a look already a little bit, but studynet.hearts.ac.uk will allow you to access the whole sort of university remotely. And it's got 4 main areas. So you'll see when you go to StudyNet, the top left-hand side, My StudyNet, is the home page. You'll see news on the left and careers information in the middle. At the bottom, there's an important link in the footer called Student Record, and we advise that you make sure that your contact details are up to date, because that's how we communicate with you. And it's through that Student Record link that you make sure your details are up to date. Then you've got My Course, which has got all your academic information. It's got links to all the microsites. The online library I'm going to talk about a bit more in a minute, and help and support. So it's just flashed up about keeping your student record up to date. We recommend you check your email regularly and note the university IT regulations, which I'm sure you will do. So we're going to look at now, we're going to just look at a few things. We're going to look at why this is important for your studies here. We're going to look a little bit at the research process. We're going to look at some places where you can search for information, and then some tips on how to search, a little bit about critical thinking and report writing and referencing. So all of those things are skills that you will need to develop alongside all your technical skills and the skills you're already acquiring in the workplace. We also hope that this will help as you develop your learning and research skills. This is one of the graduate attributes from Hertfordshire, so it's a good one to develop. And on a more practical note, we want to save you time and get you the best grades possible. And we did talk to some students who were studying computer science about how useful it was in the workplace to develop sort of your research skills. And James, who's a business analyst, said if he hadn't done his research correctly, it would have been noticed. And Francesca talked about being able to analyse, evaluate and report back on her findings. And she talked about these as skills that she used every day. So when you're doing your research, you may be looking at all sorts of types of information. So you could be looking at conference proceedings, you could be looking at commercial information or standards or professional organisations' outputs or technical data. And you're probably aware that for somebody to publish in an academic journal, it goes through quite a few iterations. The diagram here shows about the whole scholarly publication cycle. So somebody might have an idea, research it, they might talk about it with their colleagues or take out a patent or write a technical report, present at conferences. For something to get into an academic journal, it will be peer reviewed by other experts and it won't be published until it's a really high standard. But also other ways of people sharing their research through books, obviously, theses, handbooks, encyclopedias. And so for you, when you're asked to write an assignment, apart from coding or whatever technical skills you will be developing, if you're asked to look at what other people have written or you want to deepen your own knowledge of a subject, there's this sort of iterative process. So think about the sort of information you need. Think about the best sources, the search terms you'll use, search the sources, evaluate the results, so be quite critical and make sure that you record them in your references or bibliography. And there's a link there to an I Spy tutorial, which is one of our information skills tutorials called Systematic Searching. I'm going to cover some of the tips in a minute. So we do recommend you start with something called the Know-How Guide, and that's on StudyNet on the online library page. And it's some of it's for campus-based students, but a lot of it is you can use anywhere from for online students as well. So, and I will be covering some of that now, but just to remind you that that's there. So now onto the online library page on StudyNet. It's the third tab along, and that search box that says Library Search is a really good one-stop search box with quite a powerful search engine that will search inside print books, e-books, research papers and articles from our collections. So we work hard with the school to make sure that you've got the right books and journals to support your programme. And you can access all of these really through the online library page. The point too there is specialist information sources. So for example, we have things like British Standards and lots of other collections. Some of them, the licenses are not available for overseas, but you will be advised if that's the case. But most of our resources you can access from anywhere. So I've got an example library search results here. So in this example, I typed in artificial intelligence with double quotes, and what that does is search for a phrase. So it's got those two words locked together, and it will give me focused results. So the results that come up will have to have those two words together. And then I've put the author's last name, so I've got Nignitsky. So it's come up with a variety of source results. I think this animation will work. So the first is an ebook. And I know it's an ebook, it just says ebook full text online. And a lot of our ebooks you can download, but some of them you can only read online, and you'll see the options available when you get to use them. But hopefully ebooks will be really helpful for you as your online students. The next example here is a print book. Unless you live close to the campus, that's not helpful for you, but hopefully you will also have your own local libraries that you can use. And the other item that's come up here is an article. It's a conference proceeding. Again, that's full text online. So the message really is that you don't have to pay for anything here. It's these collections are already part of the university's So what you can do from the results screen here is you can link, if it's an ebook, directly or link to an article. And there's some other functionality that I think you'll find really helpful. I've got a cite there, so the double quotes there will actually give you the reference. So if you want to refer to a book or an article that you've read in an assignment, and we're using Harvard referencing, I'll come on to that in a minute, but the library search system will already produce the reference for you in almost Harvard style. You wouldn't need to put brackets around the year, but it's done a lot of the work for you. So that's the cite tool, which there's those double quotes. You can email an individual record to yourself. You can look at the abstracts. If you click preview, you'll get a summary or an abstract. And I'll show you in a minute how you can collect up multiple references and export them out. So I've got another search here, and I've used Boolean searching. So you'll be using Boolean logic, I think, in your coding. But in this example, I've joined two phrases together to narrow down the number of search results I get. So there it says and, the results will have to have both those phrases in, so they will give me focused, relevant results. And also on the left of the screen, you can see we've got these filtering tools. You've got that slider bar with the date. So what you can do is drag the slider bar or put dates in, and you can then make sure you're getting recent results that are relevant for you. Because as you know, well, computer science changes all the time, and you want to make sure that the information you're using hasn't been superseded or is not outdated. So that's that slider bar that says publication date. And then under refine your search or content type, you've also got filters that you can use. So if you only wanted scholarly and peer-reviewed articles, you can select that one. If you only wanted ebooks, you could select book, ebook under content type, and then full text online, and the results would just be ebooks. So I've shown you quite a lot of the functionality just from that online library page. I hope you find that helpful. I think if you go to Google or Google Scholar, you will find more results, but this is a really good subset of quality information that is credible, has already been sort of academically verified, and your lecturers will appreciate you using them. I just showed you this, mentioned this actually, so just to find ebooks, you would select book, ebook, and then full text online. And then saving your results. As I mentioned, if you've got several that you think you want to keep a note of because you think they'll be useful for exam revision or an assignment or a project, you can click the little folder next to the ones you've selected and you'll see it turn red. And then you see a little folder with the number of items in appear on the top right. When you click on that, you'll see this screen, and then you can select Harvard and you can export them out to reference management software, which you might want to use. I'll come on to that in a minute, or email them to yourself. And those links will then take you back to that record, so then you can sort of read it again. And it's already referenced using the Harvard or whatever style you've chosen. So I mentioned that Library Search contains a lot of our collections. So we subscribe on your behalf to ACM, which is the Association of Computing Machinery. We subscribe to Lecture Notes in Computer Science. We subscribe to IEEE, Science Direct, Scopus. So you don't need to go to the separate collections. You can just do your one search. It also, as I mentioned, you'll find books in there too. We also have exam papers there. You can search for exam papers. It might come up with recommendations of places to search separately. And the online library has links to the separate toolkits, including the one for computer science. Things that are not included are things like British standards. But for computer science, you're really well served just with the that search box. There's nothing stopping you from searching the individual collections, and you might prefer to do that. But it's a really good starting point. And if you want to see if we do have an individual journal or an individual collection, you can see under that library search box there's an A to Z. There's the A to Z list of search sources for collections or of journals, individual journals. So if you want to see if we subscribe to a particular collection or journal, use the A to Z lists. And the Computer Science Toolkit is also there, which I'm coming on to in a minute. So this is what the computer science toolkit looks like. It's got a front page which has got lots of good information. From there, I've just clicked on the journals link to show you the screenshot there, which tells you about the individual collections and the specialist sources. I think Safari comes up again in a minute. That's a really good collection of ebooks. A lot of these are already in the library catalogue, but you'll find them when you do library search, but they're not all there. So you might want to go straight to Safari using that link, and you can see, I think it's way over 20,000 ebooks now, which are updated all the time, and they're very relevant for your course. And there's also skills materials there too on the toolkit. Yes, so here's Safari. Another way to pick up the link is from the recommended search sources. When you go to Safari, you might see a link that says Athens users sign in. Once you're in, you can browse on the left. It's got a menu of topics, or you can search inside it using the advanced search. But I must point out that it's very important if you're using Safari that when you've finished, you sign out. You'll see a link that says sign out from Safari now. The reason for that is that we have, unfortunately, there's a limit to the number of concurrent users for Safari. So if everybody's accessing it at the same time, you might get turned away. Obviously, we want to avoid you being turned away because that's frustrating and you'd have to then go in again later. But do persevere if that does happen to you. But do remember to try and free it up when you're not using it. So remember to sign out when you're finished. And another service that is available to you when you're writing your assignments, if there is a journal article that you would like and we don't have it in our collection and you've already checked that we don't have that journal using the A to Z list, you can request an article from the British Library, and there's the whole video on how to do that, so I won't go into that in detail. But do remember that that's available to you. You'll be emailed then the article that you can then use. You need to have the reference, all the information about it, so that you can tell the British Library what you're looking for. But they will then send it to you. Okay, so that was really all on the online library, and my next slides are about Google search, and then we come on to a bit about critical thinking and report writing and referencing. So this is just one slide on Google, which, as we all know, has got masses of information, but the danger is it's a bit overwhelming. You might know this already, but there's some quite good tips here that will help you. If you just want a particular file types returned, you can put file type, and the file extension. You can use put site, colon, and then the type of website. So you could put .ac.uk for British universities, or .edu if you want information from American universities. You can search for images, you can do calculations and definitions, define colon and then a search term. And that might be helpful when you're defining your topic at the beginning of a research project, say. Critical thinking, I think this is important generally to think about the quality of the information you're looking at. So I did mention that the library catalogue has good quality information in it, but generally you might want to just ask yourself these questions when you're looking at a piece of information, especially the internet. So who wrote it? Are they an expert in the field? What is the coverage? Is it suitable for university level? Why have they written something? Are they trying to sell you something? And when was it written? And that goes back to that date slider bar I showed you. So is it up to date, or is it already old and not relevant anymore? There's another I Spy tutorial on critical thinking. Report writing, I think you'll be given guidance on the structure of any reports that you write. But there is an I Spy tutorial on essay and report writing, and you might want to have a look at that. All the I Spy tutorials are at that short URL, and they're all also available on the online library page of StudyNet under General Study Skills. So finally, I've just got a few slides on referencing. You might be familiar with this, but I hope you don't mind me covering it again. It's important that anything that you use in your academic work that's not come out of your own head is reference. So you need to give enough information to your tutors so that they can find where you got the information from. You won't be quoting great chunks of it, you will just be referring to it. And the style that computer science uses is called Harvard, and it's also known as author date. And it shows that you understand plagiarism and copyright law. So for a book, the elements, all the information about a book is broken down and put in a particular order, and that's the example using the Harvard style. But as I showed you, there are tools available to create the reference for you. You don't have to do it by hand. The example I gave you was the library search results, and that gave you that option to cite a book that you found in the catalogue. If it's a journal, the information is slightly different because journals are published regularly, so you'd need to say the title of the article, the title of the journal, and then when it appeared, which year and which volume and part number. You put page numbers if you've quoted directly. And then, importantly, when you're quoting from a website, don't just put the URL. You do need to say the name of the organisation that produced the website. You also need to say the date you accessed it. And the way you do that is to put the name of the website first, and then in square brackets the date you accessed it or viewed it, and then you would put available from, and then you put the URL. And so using the author date system, this is the example where you'd put the author, and then in brackets you would put the year in the body of the text. If you've quoted directly, you would put the page numbers. And then at the end, you list all your authors in alphabetical order of their last name. So that way you can be confident you have referenced properly, and that will hopefully get you good marks as well. As I mentioned, there are lots of tools that will help you with referencing. There is a link on the online library page under study skills that says referencing. Do have a look at that. We have the business school here have produced a Harvard guide, and that's absolutely fine for you to consult as well. It covers all referencing lots of different types of information. We've got a tutorial on referencing from the iSpy tutorials, and then the reference management tools. I've got little screenshots here, but there's Word has its own. There's something called EndNote Basic, which is very good to use. There's the tool in the library catalogue. That's Neil's toolbox there. Ref me, cite this for me. So you can choose what you're most comfortable with using. I'm nearly at the end now. OneDrive here, I've got a picture of the cloud there. As mentioned, you've got a terabyte of storage to save your work. So after all your hard work, make sure you don't lose it. Make sure it's backed up. I don't need to tell you that, I'm sure. But to remind you, you've got your terabyte of storage with Office 365, of which OneDrive is a part. And then help and support on StudyNet, the fourth tab along, and Ask Hearts is in your Hearts mobile app. If you want to report any faults or have any queries to raise, you can just go online to the helpdesk.hearts.ac.uk link I've given you there. You can phone, email helpdesk@hearts.ac.uk, and we've got an out-of-hours service now, so that any time of day or night somebody will be able to take your call and they'll be able to refer you on to the help that's available. So I hope you find that helpful. So that's me, that's my email address. Do follow us on Twitter if you're Twitter users, we're UHLR. I think that's it. So if anyone's got any questions, please do type them in, and I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, you can email me at any time. And it's very nice to meet you virtually. Oh, Jane's just asked about the Athens login. You don't need to worry about that because the authentication is handled when you log on to StudyNet. It uses something called ADFS, I think. So this is where, yeah. So you don't need to worry. You're authenticated. You don't need a separate Athens login. You might just need to click through where it says Athens. We use Easy Proxy as well. I don't know if that's making it easier. Also, is it Bay or Bio? You've said we don't use APA. No, computer science use Harvard. I think our science students use APA, but they tend to use Harvard. I mean, you need to be consistent, that's the main thing. Thank you. Has anyone got any other questions? Oh, I forgot to mention something. Can I just mention, I forgot to mention this, we have a lot of YouTube videos. We've got our own channel on the online library page. So if you go to online library, on the right hand side there's a link to the UH Library on YouTube channel. So I would recommend you use that. There's also a playlist that's just for computer science. So I'll follow that up I'll put that something on the program site about that. Past papers. Yeah, the past exam papers, if they're made available, will be available on the online library library search results screen. I'm not sure for the individual modules. Maybe not for online.
Varies, I think.
Yes. So that would depend. You can check with the tutors for the individual modules for the past papers. Okay. All right. So if you haven't got any more questions, I'd just like to say all the best for your studies, and it's very nice to meet you virtually. And please don't hesitate if you've got questions just to email me. Thank you.